Hi, my name is Rob Scott from UC Today News, and welcome to our September Microsoft Teams news update. As always, I'm joined by Tom Arbuthnot. He's a Microsoft Teams expert and co-founder of Empowering.Cloud. And together, we're going to be running through the latest headlines, what matters in the world of Microsoft Teams. Welcome, Tom. How's it going?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Yeah, everybody's back from holidays now, and it's surprisingly, normally September is a bit quiet because it's August, but actually there's been a decent amount of news over the holidays as well, so we can catch everybody up today.
Yeah, absolutely. Whilst most of us did go on holiday in August, it does appear Teams doesn't rest. So, yeah, we've got lots to get through, in fact, and it's just me and you today, so a little bit of a slight format change, but I think the holidays have hit our community pretty hard. Plus, we are recording this on Labor Day in the US, so happy Labor Day.
Yeah. Tactically not the best day to record if you want US contributors, it turns out.
No, exactly. So, but anyways, we'll jump on through it. But
We're
Tom,
going old school.
Yeah, exactly. And let's kick off with the big news over the past couple of weeks: the unbundling of Microsoft Teams in the EU. Tom, I mean, this is big news. What does it actually mean?
Yeah, really big news. So obviously we've talked on the previous shows about the European Union Competition Commission investigating Microsoft, and people like Slack and others complaining that it's anti-competitive for Microsoft to bundle kind of collab and UC with Office. Reportedly there were talks between the Competition Commission and Microsoft, and those didn't resolve it, so it went to a formal investigation. But just weeks after announcing the formal investigation, Microsoft have announced they're going to offer SKUs in the EU, or technically it's the EEA, the European Economic Area. That doesn't include the UK anymore because of Brexit, but they also include Switzerland in that. And they're going to have a SKU without Teams. So it will be $2 less than the equivalent bundles. So both the business packages and the enterprise packages, but there'll be no Teams in there. And for those that want Teams, they'll have to spend an extra €5 to add Teams back into that bundle. For all existing customers, they can stay on their current package. It doesn't price change for them. But for net new customers in those areas, they will have to buy both the package, the bundle, the suite without Teams, and then top up 2 Teams to get Teams.
Got it. So that's an important point now. If you've got Teams, you don't need to do anything. But if you're a net new subscriber of Teams, then you're going to be under these new rules, correct?
Yeah, just if you're in those countries in the EEA, you'll have to buy essentially it's the same M365, the E3, the E5, the business packages, but it'll just be brackets, no Teams, and it'll be $2 less, and then you'll buy an additional SKU to up level to Teams, and you'll be back to kind of where you started before if you want to do that. But in theoretically, if you didn't want that, if you were a Slack shop, if you're a WebEx shop, you can save $2 a month because you don't need Teams. And the theory is that you could spend that elsewhere and it makes it more competitive. Interesting that Microsoft haven't made the uplift the same as the discount. So effectively, a lot of customers are going to see this as potentially a price rise because they're going to have to spend €3 more to get to where they were before.
Got it. And this is, I mean, as you said, this goes way back, quite a few years ago, back to a bit of a calling out from Slack to Microsoft, saying that this is anti-competitive and that kind of thing. Is this was Slack, first of all, popping champagne bottles, when this was announced, do you think? I mean, because this potentially is going to have a ripple effect, for years to come, do we think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't hear much of Slack anymore since the Salesforce acquisition, to be honest. But they were definitely one of the people pushing for it. I'm sure the industry in general is appreciative of the opportunity to, have a conversation about, well, you don't need to buy Teams bundled, you can spend that money elsewhere. I don't think $2 a user a month is a huge difference. And it's interesting that Microsoft haven't made the uplift the same. But I think generally it's good for the industry if there's more competition. So from that point of view, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Actually, I think we have to have these rules in place, and it is. I was just wondering whether it's potentially something that could extend itself to wider than the EU. Could we see this happening?
Yeah, I saw a few comments from Americans saying we'd like to see this, but I don't think there's an equivalent kind of commission with such big teeth to make them do it in the US, and they've clearly chosen to only do it in those areas affected by the EU legislation. So I doubt we'll see it anywhere else. But these kind of things push back on future decisions about bundling as well. So it's not just this, it'll be other things Microsoft do where they might consider more carefully, well, how much can we bundle? Although I do think generally Microsoft have been looking to do extra SKUs and uplifts and up the kind of revenue per user. So things like Teams Premium, things like Copilot are all add-ons. Something that was interesting is there was also pressure in this case for Microsoft to allow the other apps, so a Zoom or a WebEx or a Slack or whoever, to more tightly integrate into Office. And Microsoft are going to allow the web apps of Office to be integrated into those other platforms so they can bring up native Word within their platform. On the API front, there's no new APIs. Microsoft said they document the APIs better as part of this. I think that's a bit hollow because people like Zoom and WebEx are quite capable of working out what the APIs are able to do. You know, they've got big dev teams. So I feel like there should be more pressure on allow a genuine playing field. Anything Teams could do with Office, let a Zoom or a Slack or a WebEx do that with Office too. That would have been a more long-standing kind of benefit to those providers, I think. But we'll see. This is what Microsoft have put forward. It doesn't mean the investigation's not instantly not happening or anything. So we'll see what the market reaction is.
Exactly, and as you said, it could be a bit of a butterfly effect here. We're going to find out more and more as this unfolds of kind of what decisions Microsoft are going to have to make going forward on this and how it affects ultimately the customer consuming the product. So interesting one. Let's keep an eye on it. We will certainly report back on this as time goes by. So next up, Tom, Teams Essentials and phone discount bundle pricing.
So from unbundling to bundling, I thought we'd put these back to back because it's quite funny. So this is definitely not available in the European Economic Area, but in the US and the UK, Microsoft are offering Teams Essentials, which is the very, very low end SKUs. That's Teams on its own, which is $4 per user per month. They're rolling phone into that. And giving a 33% discount. So just looking at my notes here, that ends up being $10.05 a month for Teams Essentials and phone with pay-as-you-go, or $16 a month for Teams Essentials with domestic calling, and there are UK equivalent pricing for that. Interesting to see Microsoft going for the very, very low end. I would have liked to see them do something in the mid-market, kind of the business SKUs, which are up to 300 seats, whereas this is, handfuls of people potentially, but interesting to see Microsoft proactively go after that market for phone.
It is, isn't it? And you're right, that kind of price point and these kind of numbers, definitely the kind of smaller end of the market, the real small business end or solo end of the marketplace. So I suppose that's is that a space that Microsoft do we think has historically had troubles kind of penetrating that end of the market?
I think it's always something they've wanted, and they offer really competitive packages in that sub 300 seat kind of space in terms of price versus value. But Microsoft 365 is such a complex beast. I think lots of organizations start on, well, we'll just use Gmail, Slack, whatever, like something simple or point solution, Zoom. So I think Microsoft are trying to get people on the M365 suite conversation earlier. And certainly they're very, very good at selling to enterprise and larger customers because they have the partners, they have the touch point. But getting those mid-market customers that are very influenced by resellers who make good margin on other solutions and less margin on Microsoft licensing is kind of a sticking point for them because there's nobody out there selling it, explaining it, deploying it, because there's not tons of margin in it. But the people that are actively working in that end of the market, the partners, the channel, want to sell something with potentially more margin, so they'll push another UC solution potentially.
Yeah. Good points. Good stuff. Right. Well, let's move on to Microsoft Teams Rooms. We've got an update there, Tom. Tell us more.
Yeah, we had what was what one of the Microsoft people called one of the biggest updates for Microsoft Teams Rooms this year so far. So this is 4.18. Some of the highlights are Cloud IntelliFrame. So that's the ability to take a bog standard camera that doesn't have any fancy smarts, put the feed into the cloud, and Microsoft use AI in the cloud to frame, to box out individuals in the room. So It will smart frame the entire room. It will give each people their own box, which is a nice add-on for people that haven't bought the kind of fancy cameras that do that camera side. Also, intelligent camera support, which is kind of the opposite. So that's having a smart camera in the room and allowing the camera to send multiple feeds up to the cloud, so everybody gets their own video feed, so you get a high quality framing of each individual using camera AI locally rather than the cloud. Front row gallery improvements, so they're making the background on front row uniform across all users. So one of the things that makes it kind of more engaging is not to have my room and your room and somebody else's room on a great big screen, so they can kind of essentially initially have black for the entire background, but eventually have a custom background, so it makes it more feel like the remote people are in the same place.
Nice.
And last one is spatial audio, so having that audio come from the right position in the room based on where the video row is, i.e. the leftmost person comes more out of the left speaker, the rightmost person comes more out of the right speaker.
Superb. So sort of continuous improvement in the room space. I love this. There's more and more coming through all the time, but great to see that commitment from Microsoft.
Yeah, and one of the things about Microsoft Teams Rooms is you're buying into kind of a platform conversation where you're going to keep getting features added and added. So that's a nice thing from a customer point of view. You bought these 2 years ago and you get all these features as part of the rolling license cost.
Superb. And we've also got a Teams panel update. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So panels alongside rooms. So these are the devices that sit outside the room to show you the room's free, busy, to let you book the room. Those are now going to have QR codes, so you can bring your Teams Phone mobile app up, scan the room, the QR code, and book the room, reserve the room, etc. So just slickening up the experience there. At the moment, it's only within the tenant, so you'd have to be in that organisation to do that. But from a booking point of view, that's really nice. If you're kind of wandering up to a free room and you want to book it, you don't have to faff around with which room is it, find it on the gallery, or the gal, book it yourself. You can just scan and go. Yeah,
it's amazing. We're seeing QR codes everywhere nowadays, but it's actually come true, hasn't it? That promise that QR codes.
Yeah, pandemic brought them where we were, restaurant menus, everything else. Everybody knows what a QR code is now, so they're becoming quite mainstream.
Yeah, superb, great stuff. Well, let's talk next up. Actually, we said we'd talk about cloud video interop. What's going on there?
Yeah, this is a more niche requirement, but this gives you the ability to, from a Teams room, connect to a standards-based SIP meeting. It's been around for a while, but interestingly, Blue Jeans have obviously kind of decided they're going to bow out of the UC market. So they were one of the 4 original providers. Poly HP had a solution, but now they're OEMing Pexip's solution. So we're down to 2 solutions in the market, which is Cisco solution and Pexip solution. Pexip have put quite a lot of investment into their solution. They're doing some clever things, mimicking some of the ways Teams works, things like mute and knowing who's speaking. And also, I put in the show notes, there's a link now to Microsoft are doing release notes for CVI. So they're showing features being updated and which vendor supports them. So a good opportunity here certainly for Pexip and Cisco to kind of plug that gap for Microsoft Teams rooms that need that standards-based SIP connectivity still.
And on a head-to-head comparison, why would you choose one over the other, or would you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think Pexip that's their kind of primary thing is Interop. So they're definitely very invested, whereas Cisco have options for native team rooms, options for WebEx rooms that do SIP and CVI. So I think Pexip have the edge in terms of functionality at the moment. But as with all things, it kind of comes down to the customer. And if you're a Cisco shop, maybe they do use some kind of bundle deal where they wrap that in as well. But I'd say Pexip is becoming the default in a lot of cases.
Good stuff. Well, let's talk devices. Never have an update without some kind of update on some kind of phone or device. But first of all, we said we'd talk about Hotline phones. Tell us more.
Yeah, we talked about this way back at, it was Enterprise Connect this got launched. So this is the ability to set up a Teams phone to auto dial. So you can have one sitting on reception, you pick it up and it auto dials. So that was announced Enterprise Connect, but that is now generally available. So you can set your Teams phone up to auto dial, reception or security. They've also added some updates around the dial pad and some other bits and pieces around the UI to tidy that up as well. So just a nice feature for that particular use case where we used to use standards-based SIP phones to auto dial. We can now do that Teams native.
Very nice. And next update we said we talk about was Algo IP devices. There's something, something new there as well.
Yeah. So Algo are now all officially certified. So for those not familiar, again, this was announced quite a while ago. Algo do intercom, paging, overhead PA systems, those kind of things. They're all certified or kind of supported on Teams SIP gateway now. So you can take those, natively register them to Teams via the SIP gateway and use them with Teams, which is a use case a lot of people still have in the office where they need paging or intercom.
Interesting. It reminds me back in the day when I was a telecoms engineer and I used to install Valcom PA systems, and what a nightmare they were to install. I mean, to some degree they were easy, but then the audio and the quality never was quite right on my installations, at least. So, never asked.
Well, you got into media, Rob, didn't you? So we'll blame that on the kit, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, blame it on the kit. Right, but that's good news. And last, but by no means least, we said we talk about this end of support notice for connecting to Skype for Business server in Microsoft Teams rooms on Windows. Tom?
Yeah, this is another nail in the coffin for Skype for Business. So obviously Skype for Business Online has all been depreciated and gone, but there is still Skype for Business Server, the on-premises solution. Microsoft Teams rooms, which used to be Skype Room Systems, SRS, at the moment can talk to both old school Skype Server and Teams. They're now dropping that capability out of the room systems to talk to Skype Server, so they will only be Teams native. Very little notice here. This will be retired effective October the 1st, 2023. I'm assuming Microsoft have already talked to or alerted customers. I mean, it's going to be there's a very small subset of server customers left, and there's probably a smaller subset that also use Microsoft Teams rooms. But nevertheless, this will impact some customers, and it's another nudge towards, while Skype Business Server on-prem is still supported, it's not our favorite, it's not our future, kind of get on board with the cloud, basically.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, it had to happen. It has happened. And if you haven't had your notification, you might want to find more out about that sometime soon. Otherwise, that is our news update for today, Tom. We do have some events coming up. Probably worth jumping into those. What do you think?
Yeah, we've got some good ones coming up. So Teams Fireside Chat this month, we've got Jamie Stark. Jamie's awesome. He works at Microsoft looking after the admin functionality for Teams Phone in the Teams Admin Center. And he's been around for as long as some of us old schoolers around the Teams and Skype space. So he's always very good fun to understand kind of what's going on behind the covers. And for the audience that want some admin Teams Phone, he's a great person to talk to. So looking forward to that. We also I've got the Microsoft UC User Group London, which is actually being hosted at Cisco's office. So that again tells you something of where we are these days, that they're happy to host us and show their kit. And even though it's a Microsoft user group, also we've got Michelle Borman, who's a Netherlands team specialist. So he's going to take us through a bunch of roadmap stuff. So really looking forward to that one. And also on my list, we have UC Expo coming up, which is 4th and 5th of October. So really not long now until that show. That's the big one for kind of London and Europe around UC. I think you'll be there as well, Rob?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's, by the time this video comes out, just a few weeks away. So something to get excited about. Make sure you got your tickets.
It's a really good show, really good opportunity to network, and we're doing all sorts of things. But again, I've got a session there with a couple of Microsoft people around roadmap and what's going on with Teams. We've got a user group takeover, and I've got a customer panel on the first day as well.
Fantastic. And probably not long after that, we have Microsoft Ignite, and that's in November, isn't it? No, I'm quite looking forward to this year's event. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what comes out. Obviously, the big hype is Copilot, right? We've had all the pre-announcement. We know it's been testing, so we're hoping to get some news around that. But yeah, we'll be following that very carefully. And there's always a ton of news comes out of Ignite, so it'll be interesting to see what gets announced and how close we are to Copilot being GA as well.
Yeah, as you say, it's got to be Copilot centric, and it's got to be Copilot everywhere at that event. I'm quite looking forward to seeing it in Teams. I mean, I haven't actually seen it much in Teams yet. I mean, how and when is that going to be?
Yeah, that's the funny thing. All the kind of hype in the industry and getting all the partners ready. Still, very few people have it hands on. So there's something like 600 customers that have early access, and that's it. The reports are really positive around talking to a few people who are playing with it, like I would trust their opinion. Generally seems quite strong, particularly in Outlook, like using it to triage emails has been a big one that I hear is popular. The idea of jumping into a Teams chat and being able to summarize the chat, or jump in mid-meeting and say what's been said so far, who's committed to what, really exciting. So I'm reserving judgment, as I tend to do with these things, until I get hands-on and see it in real life, because we're definitely on the hype cycle for AI. But I am excited about the potential of it for sure.
Yeah, well, you heard it here, folks. We have no idea when it's going to be released, but it will be released soon, sometime.
Yeah, you'll hear it here first when we know. When we know, you'll know.
But equally, I'm really looking forward to all that stuff that you just mentioned, because I love working with AI now, and I'm working with ChatGPT quite a bit, and just the potential of taking that aggro away from my meetings, summaries, and just, I suppose, just helping me type better messages and emails and that kind of thing. It
really is powerful. We've been working with the Azure AI Credits Tom Morgan, who does our Empowering.Cloud platform, and it's not released yet, but we have our Teams bot, querying all our Empowering.Cloud content, so you can ask questions and it will give you answers, and it will credit the relevant video or research paper. Nice. And so we've still got a bit of testing to do before we release that, but it's really exciting to have the potential of having a new way. We're up to something like 180 videos, a new way to engage in that content and get the answer you need without having to trawl through.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Very exciting indeed. Great. Well, Tom, that's it from us. Until next time, if you are new to UC Today, please subscribe. If you're not, then do give us a like or a comment. It's always appreciated. And if you're a Microsoft Teams fan and you want to be part of the conversation, you can certainly join Tom, myself, and all our guests that are normally on the show on LinkedIn and Twitter, and our social links are in the description. Hey, thanks, Tom. Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good show. And there'll be even more news once we hit through September. So stay tuned for next month.
Absolutely. I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.